This particular judgment is uh, primarily based on a principle of natural justice, which is called Audi Aulterim Partem. Uh, all of you, since your college days, probably have been hearing about it. And this particular judgment is a living example why that principle is important, and more importantly, adhering to this principle is very important. So, this is a civil appeal in which case the appellant was dismissed, not dismissed entirely, but anyway, he was not given a permanent position. He was engaged in a school as a teacher, and a dispute arose from the selection committee, and the dispute was primarily with the selection board. And what happened was, in that selection board, there were some relatives for some of the candidates who were in the selection bench, and that led to the dismissal from the service, though there was an interim protection that was given, because again, this having relatives in selection board, that also violates a principle of another form of principle of natural justice called the principle of bias. So this in this particular judgment, there have been multiple maxims or principles that have been talked about. So if you are dealing with a case relevant to Audi Alteram Partem, you can certainly use this. This is a very good judgment which reinforce that principle, emphasizing why adhering is important, and violation of that at any level, at any administrative decision, can have subsequent consequences. Now, here you can see the principle of the primarily this judgment revolves around various maxims or principles of natural justice, and the main content of this particular judgment is, or it comes out of audio alterum partem, as I said, due to the dismissal without giving any opportunity to hear the other side. uh, there is one other interesting concept that I came to know. I didn't know until now. That is likelihood to test the determined bias. So what this particular principle talks about, that in case if there is a bias in any particular affairs, in any administrative affairs, because mostly when you will be dealing with all these principles, you will be dealing with state agencies, and within different state affairs, let's say that there is a sense of bias, or if you perceive that there was some sort of bias. Now, this particular principle talks about that likelihood of having that bias, or a test to have it confirm the likelihood of subsisting bias in that particular scenario. So Supreme Court has a test for it. You can Google it. There are few questions which are asked actually, or there are certain ingredients at which they look into. So you just type test to determine bias or real likelihood, you will find it. And this is also a pertinent judgment. If you are uh, keen on knowing more about it, then you can go to this particular judgment: central organization of railway electrification versus ECI, SPS, such and such. So in that judgment, they applied this test to evaluate the likelihood of bias. Uh, One other principle that was applied here is the principle of nemo judex, which is no one should be judged in his or her own case. And another doctrine that was applied was the doctrine of necessity. By the way, the relation between this and this particular principle lies with the one is a norm and other is an exception. So doctrine of necessity is an exception. As you can see, it serves as an exception to the rule against bias. So it is only applied in exceptional cases where it is incumbent, or the necessity lies there. Probably there are no other alternatives. So in that case, the doctrine of necessity serves as an alternative to the principle of, or maxim of, nemo judex. Uh, there is one other exception, that is prejudice exception. Uh, this particular principle also, it revolves around the principle of same, Audi Aulterim Partem. Again, just Google it a little bit. It will help you to understand these principles in a much better way. And the reason why you need to be aware about all these principles, because when you have a matter in hand, you never know which principle or the maxim or the doctrine might work for you to defend your case, or to help get uh, justice. And there are two other principles. One is called Leary principle and Calvin principle. Now, this in this particular video, it's very difficult for me to explain what these two principles are. But if I can just uh, try and give you an overview what this principle, the Calvin principle, is an exception, by the way, of Larry principle. And what Larry principle says that, let's say that in a given scenario or given proceeding, there was a, at the beginning, if there was a violation of principle of natural justice, can it be cured at subsequent stages? And the answer to that question is no. However, there is an exception. Again, uh, this rule of exception is something, if you're dealing with law, you will know there are exceptions in every cases. There is nothing that is, I mean, in when you are dealing with law, there is nothing that is absolute or that serves as an absolute doctrine or a maxim or a presupposition. There will always be some exceptions. And Supreme Court under 242, I believe, if you remember, Supreme Court, in exceptional cases, used that as a weapon to deliver ultimate justice. And that principle itself is an exception to the traditional, or the constitutional powers which are vested with Supreme Court. Anyway, now, as I was saying, the Larry principle talks about whether, if there is a violation of principle of natural justice, can it be cured at subsequent stages, at some appeal or higher appeal level. So usually, as I said, the answer is no, but it can be cured, uh, considering the fact, if at the subsequent stages, when the matter is being adjudicated, if it is done in a holistic manner. So that means all the ingredients are being taken into consideration. As all of you know, that in most cases, epics, Supreme Court or High Court, they mostly deal with question of law. They do not get much into evidence and other relevant factors. But this Calvin principle is an exception to that. So if there is a scenario where apex court is again looking into for the end of justice, looking into different evidences or different facts and circumstances, or doing a comprehensive overview of the all uh, aspects or all the facets. So in that case, this Kelvin principles lies. So again, you can just Google it. It will get some idea, and this is where the conclusion of this particular judgment. It states the principle of such and such is cornerstone of justice, ensuring that no person is condemned unheard. So again, as I said, that you can really use this particular judgment. This is the number that can help you to retrieve, if you need this particular judgment from the Supreme Court website, you can retrieve it and you can use uh, you know maybe as uh, case laws for your matter in hand. So that's pretty much everything, bits and pieces. If not, certainly it's not a detailed overview or analysis, but just to highlight different maxims and the principles. So hope it will help. Thank you.